It started with a brochure on the kitchen table. Nothing said, "We need to talk," like a professionally designed pamphlet with a smiling log cabin and the words, "Reconnect with nature. Reconnect with yourself." Across the top. I picked it up while my wife, Erica, zipped around the kitchen, phone tucked between her shoulder and cheek, talking to her sister about wine, hiking boots, and who was bringing what board games. "I already booked it," she said after hanging up, not meeting my eyes. "It's this weekend. I figured we needed a break, you know? Fresh air, no phones, no stress." The way she said we made it sound generous, even kind. But I knew better. This trip wasn't about us. It was about her. Her and her younger sister, her friends, that circle of high-energy people I never quite felt part of. The ones who made me feel like I was speaking a different language even when I understood the words. "Sounds great," I said, forcing a smile. "Who's going?" She rattled off names. Amy and Darren, the couple who ran marathons together. Melissa, who I vaguely remembered from our wedding. And of course, Katie, her sister. Katie. I hadn't seen her much over the last few years, not since she moved 3 states away and only came back for holidays. She was 5 years younger than Erica, more grounded in a way, even if she hid it behind sarcasm and too many tattoos. I remembered the way she used to roll her eyes when Erica got dramatic, how she stayed behind to help clean up when Erica drifted off with a glass of wine in hand. She was the only one in Erica's circle who looked me in the eye when she talked to me. The cabin was high in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a few hours' drive from home. I tried to picture the trip in my head. Rustic fireplaces, pine-scented air, maybe some long overdue silence. But I also knew how these things went. I'd be the odd man out. We arrived Friday afternoon. The sky hung low with silver clouds, and the trees were just starting to turn, splashes of gold and fire red dotting the hills. The cabin was nicer than I expected, big, with a wraparound porch and would stacked neatly by the front steps. Erica leapt out of the car before I'd even turned off the engine, already yelling greetings to Darren and Melissa. Inside, people were unpacking, laughing, opening wine bottles like it was already evening. I stood there holding our overnight bag, ignored until Katie came out of one of the bedrooms and gave me a nod. "Hey," she said, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She'd changed her hair, darker now, shoulder length. She wore a worn flannel shirt and jeans, comfortable. "Easy. You look thrilled." I chuckled despite myself, just wondering how fast I can fake an ankle injury and get airlifted out of here. She smirked. "Same." And just like that, the tension in my shoulders eased. We all settled in. The group dynamic quickly took shape. Erica leading the charge with drinks and stories, Darren and Melissa attached at the hip, and Katie floating quietly on the sidelines, like me. Dinner was loud. Erica told a story about our anniversary last year, exaggerated, twisted into something comedic. Everyone laughed, including me, even though I remembered the night differently. Her checking her phone under the table, me pretending not to notice. Afterward, as the sun dipped behind the trees, we moved to the porch. Someone lit the outdoor fire pit. I stood at the edge, watching the embers swirl into the sky like tiny ghosts. Erica didn't come stand beside me. Instead, she was deep in conversation with Melissa, their heads close, voices rising and falling in dramatic cadence. She threw her head back and laughed, that fake kind of laugh, the one she used when she was putting on a show. I turned back to the fire, nursing a beer that was already warm. "Kind of beautiful out here," Katie said beside me. She was holding a glass of red wine, barefoot despite the cool night. "It is," I agreed. "Hard not to feel small, in a good way." She glanced at Erica, then back at me. "You okay?" That question caught me off guard. It was too real. Not surface level like the rest of the night. "Yeah, I lied. Just tired." She didn't push, just sipped her wine and stood with me in the quiet, the crackling fire between us. Later that night, I crawled into bed next to Erica. She smelled like perfume and red wine. I tried to hold her, just a hand on her back, but she shifted away. "Too hot," she mumbled. I rolled onto my back, staring at the dark ceiling. This was supposed to fix us. That's what she said. But she hadn't spoken directly to me all day. And yet Katie had. She saw me, even in the smallest ways. The way she offered me the last chicken skewer at dinner, the quiet smile when I held the door open for her, the way her eyes lingered just a second longer than they should have. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew this trip had just begun, and not in the way Erica thought. Something was shifting. Something neither of us had planned for. And it had started with a cabin in the woods, a strained smile, and the unmistakable feeling of being forgotten. There's a certain kind of cold that doesn't come from the air. It crept in that first night, not from the crisp mountain breeze or the drafty log cabin, but from the space between us. Erica was surrounded by friends, wrapped in stories and wine. I was seated on the far side of the fireplace, legs crossed, a bottle of beer warming in my hand, my silence barely noticed. The flames danced in the stone hearth, casting long shadows across the living room walls. Someone had pulled the couches around in a half-circle, and everyone was tucked in like it was some nostalgic camp reunion. Katie sat on the floor with a throw pillow in her lap, her wine untouched beside her. She looked up at me from time to time, quietly observant, as if she were watching a play she didn't want to be a part of. The conversation had turned juvenile, truth or dare, for grown-ups with too much alcohol and not enough maturity. It started with Melissa daring Darren to strip to his boxers and run onto the porch yelling, "I'm a mountain goat." He did, bleeding convincingly. Everyone howled with laughter. Then it was Erica's turn. "Truth," she said, smirking, cheeks flushed with Cabernet and attention. Melissa grinned. "What's something you've never told your husband?" My attention snapped back into place. "Oh, come on." Erica waved a dismissive hand. "That's a loaded one." "All the better," Darren chuckled. Erica leaned back, tilted her glass, and looked over at me. There was something sharp in her eyes, playful to everyone else. Maybe, but I saw the blade beneath. "Fine," she said, drawing out the word. "Sometimes," she turned toward the group. "Sometimes I think I married a 70-year-old man trapped in a 38-year-old body." Laughter. All of them. I blinked, slowly. "Erica," Katie said softly, but her sister was too busy basking in the spotlight. "I mean," she continued, "he's so practical. Always wants to talk about bills and gutters and tires. I swear, I could be dancing naked in front of him, and he'd be worried about the thermostat setting." Louder laughter now. The beer in my hand suddenly tasted like sand. I chuckled. It was the only thing I could think to do. The room spun around her, like she was the center of gravity, and I was the farthest satellite orbiting in cold, dead space. Katie wasn't laughing. She looked at me, and for a moment, her gaze almost made me flinch. It was too knowing, too kind. "I think that's enough for tonight," she said, standing to collect a few empty glasses. No one heard her but me. I stood too, smiling like a man who hadn't just been gutted in front of a group of semi-strangers. "I'm calling it early," I said casually, setting my bottle on the side table. Erica waved at me without looking. "Don't let the door hit your walker on the way out." More laughter. My stomach churned. I waited until the cabin was quieter, until the laughter had dulled into murmurs and music. She was still in the living room when I came out of the bedroom, wrapped in a blanket and finishing off a second bottle. "Hey," I said, my voice low, careful. She glanced at me over the rim of her glass. "What? Why did you say all that?" "Oh, come on." She rolled her eyes and set the wine down. "It was a joke." "In front of everyone?" She smirked. "You are a little boring, babe." The air turned razor-sharp between us. "I make the money. I fix the house. I help your mom when her roof leaks. I take care of the stuff you don't want to deal with. That's boring to you?" "Jesus," she muttered. "Can you not turn everything into a TED Talk?" I stared at her. Not yelling. Not angry. Just stunned. She looked up at me then, something flickering behind her eyes. Regret. Maybe. But it passed. "If it's that big of a deal, go be with anyone you want. See if I care." My jaw clenched. What the hell is that supposed to mean? She stood, brushing the blanket aside. Exactly what I said. She moved past me like I was a coat rack. "If you're that miserable being married to someone who likes to have fun, then go find someone who loves your spreadsheets and Saturday chores." I turned with her. "Erica, do you even hear yourself?" But she was already at the hallway, hair swaying behind her, voice trailing off. "Try not to lecture the furniture before bed." I stood there for a long time after she vanished into the guest room. The fire crackled in the background. Katie's glass was still on the table. She hadn't come back into the room. I walked outside to clear my head. The cold hit me like truth, sharp, biting, sobering. In the distance, laughter still echoed faintly through the trees. But here in the dark, on the porch steps, it was just me. And for the first time since the wedding, I wondered how much longer I could live like this. Wanted but unseen, needed but ridiculed. I didn't know where this trip was going, but I had a feeling tonight was only the beginning of something I couldn't undo. The next morning, the mood around the cabin was all glowing hangovers and clinking mugs. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting warm golden pools across the hardwood floor. I sipped stale coffee from a chipped mug and watched the others move around like a pack of sleep-deprived hyenas. Darren made eggs, badly. Melissa was already in yoga gear, scrolling her phone while she complained about the Wi-Fi. Erica floated in wearing one of my old college sweatshirts, bare-legged, as if nothing happened the night before. I kept to the kitchen corner, leaning on the counter, out of the way, unspoken and mostly unseen. Except by her. Katie stood across the room, by the fireplace. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot, skin still carrying the gentle flush of sleep. She was in a long t-shirt and leggings, holding a steaming cup with both hands. When I looked up, she was already watching me. Not staring, not gawking, just aware. Her eyes weren't judgmental. They were soft, curious, the kind of look that says, I saw that, and I'm still here. It unsettled me more than I expected. She didn't say anything at first. She just nodded once, subtle, a little almost smile at the corner of her lips. And then she turned and walked past me toward the kitchen. As she passed, she didn't brush against me, didn't touch, but I felt her heat anyway. Felt her breath. Felt something. She poured herself coffee in silence, side by side with me. Rough night? She asked gently. I gave a dry laugh. I don't know what you mean. My wife publicly emasculated me. What could possibly be rough about that? Katie smiled without humor and took a sip of coffee. They thought it was a joke, but it wasn't funny. I know, I said. There was a pause, not awkward, just dense. Full. You didn't deserve that, she added. What she said. I glanced at her. It's fine. No, she said, louder now, eyes on mine. It's not. And it hit me in that moment. How rare it was for anyone to speak up for me. Not because they were cruel, but because I never invited it. I'd been carrying this armor of nonchalance for so long. I didn't know what to do when someone looked past it. Katie did. Thanks, I said, voice quieter than I wanted. She nodded once, eyes still holding mine for a breath longer than they should have. Then she turned and walked out onto the porch. The day rolled on. The group planned a hike after breakfast. Erica's idea, of course. Something light, she claimed. I wasn't in the mood. Neither, apparently, was Katie. You two staying behind? Melissa asked, slipping on a windbreaker. Katie raised a hand. I twisted my ankle on the stairs last night. I blinked. That was bullshit. I saw her walk fine 5 minutes ago. Oh no, are you okay? Katie waved her off. It's not bad. Just sore. I'll stay back and rest. And then everyone looked at me. I'll keep her company, I said before I could think about it. Someone should make sure she doesn't die of boredom. Erica didn't say anything, just rolled her eyes and muttered something to Melissa. Soon, the sound of boots crunching on gravel faded into the trees. The cabin fell into silence. I sat on the couch with my coffee, watching steam swirl and vanish. Katie reappeared with a blanket draped around her shoulders and slid into the armchair across from me. Neither of us spoke for a few moments. It was comfortable. Thanks, she said eventually. For what? For not making me be alone, even if it was an excuse. You didn't twist your ankle, I said. Nope, she said with a small smile. But you looked like you needed to not be alone too. I looked at her. She was curled up, one leg tucked under the other, hair falling in soft strands along her jaw. Her eyes weren't flirtatious. Not yet. Just present. Why'd you come? I asked. She tilted her head. What do you mean? On this trip. You and Erica aren't exactly close anymore. Katie hesitated. She asked. I figured. Maybe she wanted to reconnect. I nodded slowly. But I also knew you'd be here, she added softly. That gave me pause. I glanced at her, but she didn't elaborate. She just sipped her coffee and looked out the window. Something was shifting again, something small, but unmistakable. A warmth in the belly, a flutter in the air between us. She turned back toward me and smiled again. This time, it wasn't just kind. It wasn't just empathy. There was weight in it. A thread pulled taut. I swallowed hard and looked away, heart pounding harder than it should have been. It was nothing. It had to be, but it wasn't. Later, when the group returned from the hike, flushed and winded, Erica walked right past me, shaking leaves from her hair and laughing with Darren about a squirrel attack. She didn't ask if I missed her, didn't touch me, didn't even make eye contact. But Katie did. Across the room. Just a glance, fleeting but full of meaning. It wasn't attraction. Not yet. It was acknowledgement. And it was the first time I realized just how starved I was for it. The next morning came cloaked in fog. Pale gray light spilled across the deck as I stood alone, coffee in hand, breathing in the silence. Everyone else was still asleep, the aftermath of too much wine and late-night laughter echoing like ghosts through the walls. It felt good to be outside, alone. Crisp air filled my lungs, clean and sharp. I could hear birds, a distant rustle of leaves, the hollow creak of pine trees gently shifting in the wind. I didn't want to go back inside. I didn't want to see Erica, not after the way she'd ignored me again last night. Not after watching her laugh at everyone's jokes, touch Darren's arm when he made her laugh, lean into Melissa like they were a high school clique reliving their golden years. I took a seat on the porch swing, coffee warming my hands, and let the stillness wrap around me. Footsteps on the cabin floor broke the quiet. Then, the soft creak of the screen door. I didn't have to turn to know it was her. Figured I'd find you out here, Katie said, voice still groggy with sleep. She slid into the seat beside me on the swing, her hoodie oversized, sleeves covering her hands. Her hair was messy in a way that somehow made her look even more put together. I thought they'd all sleep till noon, I said. Didn't expect company. Katie gave a soft laugh. I'm not much for sleeping in. Never was. We rocked slowly in silence. I'm glad you're out here, she said. Something in her voice was different, deliberate, like she'd been waiting for this. I glanced over at her. Yeah. She nodded, staring out toward the trees. There's something I've been thinking about saying, but I wasn't sure if I should. I felt my chest tighten. About Erica? I asked. Sort of, she said. But more about you. Katie turned toward me, eyes clear, jaw tight with whatever emotion she was holding back. You don't deserve how she treats you, she said. And you never did. I didn't know what to say. I've watched you two for years, she continued. Every family gathering, every birthday, every holiday, you always showed up for her. Always had her back. Even when she was somewhere else, mentally, emotionally. I swallowed, a knot tightening behind my ribs. I used to think maybe you didn't notice, she said. But that's not true, is it? I shook my head. I noticed. Katie pulled her knees up onto the swing, wrapping her arms around them. She looked younger like that. Softer. I hated watching it, she said. How she looked through you. How she turned you into some side character in your own life. Her voice cracked slightly, and she looked away. I've always admired you, she said. More than I should have, probably. My pulse skipped. Katie, I'm not saying this to mess things up, she said quickly. I'm saying it because you deserve to hear it. You're kind, patient. You make people feel safe. I can't tell you how many times I wish she'd see that, really see that. I exhaled, long and slow. She used to see it, I said, finally. Or maybe I just believed she did. Katie looked down. It's not your fault if someone stops valuing you. That's on them. There was silence again, but it wasn't empty. It was loaded. Then she said it. I used to have a crush on you, you know. I looked at her, surprised. Her eyes flicked up. You probably didn't notice. I was 20. You were already married. I kept it to myself. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. I remember one Thanksgiving, she said with a nostalgic half-smile. You were outside fixing the porch light at Mom and Dad's house, and everyone else was inside drinking wine. I came out to bring you a screwdriver. You said thank you like it meant something. No one had talked to me like that in weeks. I remembered that night. I remembered her. I just hadn't known what it meant. I always thought you deserved someone who really saw you, she said. And it hurt to watch her stop doing that. She looked at me, really looked, and it was like time stretched between us, taut and electric. I'm sorry, she said softly. If this makes things harder. I just couldn't keep quiet anymore. I searched her face. She wasn't trying to seduce me. She wasn't even asking for anything. She just needed me to know. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said, my voice low. That means more than I can explain. Katie smiled gently. You don't need to explain. I just didn't want you to think no one sees you. The wind stirred, bringing the faint scent of pine and earth. Inside the cabin, footsteps thudded on the floor. The others were waking up. Katie stood, letting the blanket fall from her shoulders. I'll make breakfast, she said. You want eggs? Sure, I replied. As she walked back inside, I sat there a while longer, staring into the woods. Something inside me had shifted. The pain was still there, but so was something else. A truth I hadn't dared speak. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't invisible. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. It's strange how a conversation can change everything. Not just what you see, but how you see it. The entire day carried a different weight after that morning on the porch with Katie. Nothing visible had changed, but underneath the surface, everything was shifting. I caught myself watching her differently. Not in a lustful way, but with a heightened awareness. The way her lips pressed together when she concentrated, the quiet confidence in how she moved, the way her fingers lingered just a second longer when she handed me a plate at lunch. And maybe what unsettled me most was that she was watching me too. The cabin was buzzing that afternoon with leftover energy from the hike. Erica was in the kitchen with Melissa, poring over a half-baked idea about making sangria with whatever alcohol they had left. I sat at the big pine table while Darren grilled outside, smoke curling up beyond the sliding glass doors. Katie leaned against the counter, sipping iced tea, flipping through a worn paperback. She wasn't reading, I could tell. Her eyes drifted too often, always toward me. Each glance from her came like a pulse of electricity. And yet, there was guilt sitting quietly in the corner of the room, like an uninvited guest watching my every move. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. I was married. She was my wife's sister. But reality doesn't always line up with the clean lines we draw for ourselves. Sometimes it bleeds at the edges, and the more you try to deny it, the more obvious it becomes. At lunch, we sat at the long wooden table. Darren passed around grilled chicken, and Erica handed out the sangria with a flourish. Not bad, Melissa said, taking a sip and making a face. Not good, either. Erica laughed, bumping her shoulder into mine. Oh, come on, lighten up. He's just mad I wouldn't let him use his aged bourbon. I smirked, sipping from the glass, even though I hated it. Erica leaned closer. You're quiet today. Just tired, I said. Her smile was tight. You're always tired. I didn't respond. What could I say? That I wasn't tired, I was numb? That I was slowly losing pieces of myself in this marriage and didn't know how to find my way back? Katie's eyes flicked to me from across the table. She didn't smile, didn't smirk, just saw me. And that felt like more connection than I'd had with Erica in months. Later, I volunteered to help with dishes, needing something to do with my hands. Katie joined me without asking, towel in hand, ready to dry. Erica walked past us, calling out to Melissa that they should walk down to the lake trail. She didn't even glance at me. Katie handed me a dripping plate. She doesn't look at you when she talks anymore. I froze mid-scrub. Katie's voice was soft, but certain, like you're not even there. I handed her the plate. It's been that way for a while. She doesn't deserve you, Katie said quietly, drying with slow, deliberate movements. I set the sponge down. Katie, I'm not trying to make this harder, she said. I'm not trying to turn you against her. I know, I said. It's just, I don't know what to do with any of this. She met my eyes. You don't have to do anything. I'm just being honest. Someone should be. There was something in her eyes, sadness, maybe, or longing, or both. We all drifted into different corners of the cabin that afternoon. Erica and the others went back out for another short walk. I stayed behind. So did Katie. I sat on the porch swing again, legs stretched out, a book in my lap I wasn't reading. Katie came out and didn't say anything at first. She sat beside me, close but not touching, and watched the forest breathe in and out in the wind. For a moment, I imagined reaching over, just taking her hand. I didn't. But the urge was there, humming in the background like static. Katie finally broke the silence. Do you remember when you and Erica visited me in Asheville? That weekend after your 5th anniversary? I nodded. Yeah, you were still in that little apartment with the slanted kitchen. She smiled. You two had a fight. I could hear it through the wall. I pretended I didn't. I looked down at the book. I remember. I brought you that cheap whiskey the next morning, she said. You said thank you like I had just rescued you from a burning building. You did, I said. She chuckled. I always wondered what that fight was about. I turned to her. She forgot our anniversary. I planned a whole weekend. She didn't even remember until we were already halfway there. Katie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You looked so tired. Even back then. I exhaled slowly, feeling the truth of her words settle in my chest. I think I've been tired for years, I said. She nodded. You don't have to be. Our eyes met again, and there was heat between us now. Not fire, not lust, just undeniable awareness. She looked down. Sorry, that was too much. No, I said, voice low. It wasn't. And in that moment, we didn't need to touch. We were already crossing lines, not with our hands, but with our hearts. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending I didn't feel it. It began with a single rumble of thunder far off in the mountains, so soft it could have been imagined. But by late afternoon, the sky had darkened with a slow, deliberate purpose. Gray clouds gathered over the pines like judgment, and the wind came in restless gusts that rattled the porch swing against the cabin siding. Inside, the mood shifted with the weather. The others had returned from their hike just before the first drop of rain splashed across the windows. Melissa complained loudly about her hair. Darren tried and failed to light the fireplace, and Erica barely noticed me. She moved around the cabin in leggings and a tight, white sweater I'd never seen before. New, expensive, designed to be seen. Not by me, though. Not anymore. Her eyes skimmed over me like I was a stranger boarding at the wrong cabin. I think the power might go out, Katie said quietly beside me. We were in the kitchen, side by side again. Always side by side now. It's coming down fast, I replied, watching the sheets of rain sweep across the yard. As if to prove the point, the lights flickered twice, then went dark. A chorus of groans rose from the others. Oh, come on, Melissa sighed. Seriously? Well, Darren said, already reaching for his phone. At least I downloaded Netflix episodes. Erica, standing by the window, laughed. Wow, trapped in a cabin with no power. This is so on brand for this weekend. I looked at her, the way she swirled her wine glass like we were in some wine country villa and not a storm-rattled log cabin. She didn't even glance at me. Let's make it cozy, Katie said. Her voice cut through the noise, soft but firm. She was already gathering candles from the sideboard, a box of matches in hand. Within minutes, the room glowed in soft amber. Pillars of light flickered on the kitchen counter, the mantel, the coffee table. The cabin transformed, quieter, warmer, like the storm had pressed the pause button on the world. Everyone slowly relaxed. A bottle of red was opened. Darren found a Bluetooth speaker that still had charge and played some low acoustic playlist. Someone, probably Melissa, suggested ghost stories. The usual grown-up camping trip performance. I sat on the arm of the couch. Katie took the cushion beneath me. Every movement felt intentional now. Every breath she took, I was aware of. The back of her hand brushed my leg once as she reached for her glass. She left it there a moment too long. I didn't move away. Erica told a story next. Something about her college dorm, exaggerated for effect. She waved her arms, laughed too loud, flirted with the room. But every so often, I'd catch her glancing over. At me, at Katie, at the way we sat too close. Jealousy? Curiosity? Or maybe suspicion? I didn't care. By the time Darren had told his third bad ghost story and Melissa was halfway into a third glass of wine, the atmosphere had shifted again. People were tired. Or drunk. Or both. The storm raged outside, wind howling against the windows, lightning sketching the silhouette of trees against the walls. All right, I'm tapping out, Melissa said, stretching. My back's gonna hate me tomorrow. One by one, the group trickled off to their rooms, until only Katie and I remained. The candles still flickered between us, and the wind still whispered around the corners of the cabin. You want me to blow these out? She asked, nodding at the candles. I looked at her, really looked. Her knees were tucked beneath her on the couch. Her sweatshirt slipped off one shoulder, exposing bare skin, soft and warm in the firelight. Her hair fell in loose waves that caught the candlelight like copper. Not yet, I said. She smiled, but it was sad somehow, like she knew what we were dancing around. I keep thinking, she said softly, that if we don't say it out loud, it's not real. That this doesn't cross a line. I didn't answer. You've always been good at being silent, she added. Too good. My jaw tightened. And you're better at saying things no one else will. She laughed once under her breath. Maybe, but I've never said what I really wanted to. I turned toward her. Say it now. Katie met my eyes, unflinching. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I wanted it to be you. I wanted you to be with someone who sees you. And every time she forgot you, ignored you, made you feel like nothing, I kept wishing you'd see me. The words struck like thunder in my chest. I see you now, I said. Her breath hitched, and I saw her eyes glisten in the candlelight. The silence between us was louder than the wind outside. I should go to bed, she said, slowly rising to her feet. Yeah, I said, even though I didn't move. She stepped around the coffee table, close, too close, then paused. Neither of us leaned in. Neither of us moved. But we were there, held in something thick and impossible. And then she walked away, down the hall to the guest rooms. I sat in the glow of the candles for a long time, the warmth of her presence still clinging to the couch cushion beside me. The storm had knocked out the power, but something else had turned on inside me, something I couldn't shut off. The rain hadn't stopped. By midnight, it had dulled to a steady rhythm on the roof, soft and hypnotic, like the heartbeat of the mountain. The fire had long since burned out. Only the faint scent of charred wood lingered in the cabin's living room. I couldn't sleep. The bed felt too cold, too empty. Erica had crawled in without a word, her back to me, pulling the comforter tight around her like armor. Her breathing settled into that rhythm she used when she was pretending to be asleep. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the storm, to the silence, to my own restless thoughts. Eventually, I slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb her. Not that she would have noticed. I pulled on a hoodie and stepped outside barefoot, the wood of the porch cool against my soles. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. Clouds hung low, hugging the mountains. The trees swayed gently, their leaves whispering secrets in the dark. I just stood there, leaning on the railing, watching nothing in particular, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket I hadn't realized I needed. And then, the door creaked open behind me. Soft steps. No hesitation. Katie. She joined me without a word, standing beside me, her hands stuffed into the pockets of her oversized sweater. Her hair was pulled back this time, damp at the ends. Her cheeks flushed from the cold. You couldn't sleep either? I asked. She shook her head. Your wife snores. That surprised a laugh out of me. Katie smiled, then looked out into the trees. You come out here often? Just tonight, I said. I needed to breathe. She nodded, understanding without me needing to explain. There was a long silence. Not awkward, just full. I used to think you were untouchable, Katie said softly. Back then, when I was still figuring myself out. You were this, solid, quiet man. And she had all of you. I didn't look at her. I was afraid if I did, I wouldn't be able to look away. She still has me, I said, but it felt more like a question than a fact. Katie took a slow step closer. Her shoulder brushed mine. Warm. No, she said gently. She stopped having you a long time ago. She just never noticed. Those words slid into my chest like a blade, soft, but sharp. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. Katie's voice was barely a whisper. Neither do I. The rain picked up again, tapping on the porch roof like fingertips. I turned to look at her. She was already looking at me. The porch light behind us cast shadows across her face, softening the lines, warming the space between us. Her lips were slightly parted. I didn't plan it. I didn't think. I just leaned in, and she met me halfway. The kiss was soft, uncertain, brief, but real. Her hand brushed my chest. My fingers touched her wrist. Our bodies barely touched, but it felt like fire. We pulled apart slowly, eyes locked. Katie swallowed. Her voice trembled. That probably shouldn't have happened. Probably not, I said. And neither of us moved. Not away, not closer. Just stood in the dark, breathing each other in. The rain intensified, a quiet roar beyond the trees. Do you regret it? She asked. I shook my head. No, me neither, she whispered. And then she turned and walked back inside, slow and quiet, leaving me alone again. But this time, everything had changed. I stood there long after the door closed, the taste of her still on my lips, the feel of her still humming in my chest. There was no going back, no pretending it hadn't happened. It wasn't lust. It wasn't desperation. It was something else, something more dangerous. It was the first time I'd felt wanted in a long time. Not needed, not tolerated. Wanted, by someone who had seen my quiet, tired soul, and kissed it anyway. The storm passed by morning, but it left a kind of tension in the air that had nothing to do with weather. The sun broke through slowly, casting golden light across the wet deck, making the leaves glisten like glass. Birds chirped louder than usual, as if trying to clear the heavy silence the rain had left behind. Inside, the cabin stirred back to life. Coffee brewed, sleepy greetings were exchanged, and Erica kissed me on the cheek in passing like we hadn't spent the entire night back-to-back in silence. Like my lips hadn't been on her sister's just hours earlier. I stood there in the kitchen, numb and electric all at once, watching the mundane spin of normalcy around me, knowing damn well nothing was normal anymore. Katie walked in last, hair damp, sweater too long for her, trailing just over the waistband of her shorts. Her eyes met mine for the briefest second. No smile, no words, but that glance carried every ounce of last night's kiss in it. And I felt it all over again. The thrill, the shame, the aching relief of being seen. We barely spoke that morning, but the space between us said enough. The days that followed blurred together like the quiet hum of a secret. We were careful, but it was there, the constant hum of awareness, a low pulse that never faded. Little things. She passed me the pepper shaker, and her fingers grazed mine. We washed dishes again, and she bumped her hip into mine like a private joke. Her hand brushed the small of my back as she walked by, just for a moment. Just enough. None of it was big. None of it could be seen from across the room. But I felt every damn moment. I started laughing again, real, surprised laughter. Not forced. Not polite. I caught myself smiling for no reason. And with each of those moments, I also caught myself glancing toward Erica. She didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. She was always talking about the next hike, about Melissa's drama, about some yoga retreat in California she wanted to do in the fall. I nodded along. She never asked what I thought. Just kept planning a life I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of anymore. One afternoon, Katie and I ended up alone on a short trail near the cabin. The others were napping or playing cards, and Erica had her earbuds in, watching something on her phone. No one noticed us slipping out. It wasn't planned. We just walked. There was a little overlook a half-mile out, a view of the valley, endless trees rolling like waves all the way to the blue horizon. We stood there, quiet, our arms nearly touching, hearts louder than the birds in the trees. I keep thinking I should feel worse, I said finally. Katie looked at me. Do you? I nodded slowly. Yeah, but not for the reason I thought I would. She didn't say anything. She just waited. I don't feel guilty for kissing you, I admitted. I feel guilty that it felt like the first time I could breathe in years. Katie looked away. Her eyes shimmered in the light. I've wanted to hear you say something like that for a long time, she said. But not like this. Not with her in the picture. I know, I said. She turned back to me. Do you love her? I didn't answer right away. I thought about the woman I married. The one who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen. Who once stayed up all night with me when my father passed. Who used to laugh like I was the only man in the room. Then I thought about last night. The way she rolled away from me. The way she mocked me in front of friends. The way she stopped looking at me. I don't know who she is anymore, I said. But I'm pretty sure she doesn't know me either. Katie nodded. I'm sorry. And then we stood there again in silence. This time letting the weight settle between us without fighting it. That night, after dinner, after another round of wine and meaningless stories, Katie and I found ourselves on opposite ends of the living room. Erica was playing DJ, arguing with Melissa over 2000's playlists, while Darren droned on about his old band. Katie looked up. I looked back. And in that moment, without saying anything, we knew. The porch again. Late. When the others were asleep. I waited 10 minutes after I heard Erica's breathing settle. Then I slipped out, heart pounding. Katie was already there, wrapped in a blanket, sitting on the far end of the swing. You waited, I said. I was afraid you wouldn't come, she whispered. I thought about not coming, I admitted. She looked at me, vulnerable. Why? Because the more I'm around you, the harder it is to pretend this is nothing. Katie nodded slowly, then stopped pretending. I sat beside her. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. We sat there for an hour, talking in whispers, telling stories we'd never told anyone, sharing memories of our childhoods, our fears, our disappointments, our hopes. Not lovers, not even flirts, just two people starving for honesty. And at the very end, when we stood to go, her hand found mine in the dark. She didn't kiss me. She just held my hand. And somehow, that was more intimate than anything else. There's a certain kind of thrill and secrecy, a fragile, pulsing energy that builds just under your skin. It's not pride. It's not excitement exactly. It's tension, coiled tight, both terrifying and addictive. By the fourth night, we were living inside it. Katie and I hadn't kissed again. Not really, but we didn't need to. Every moment alone, or almost alone, had become a conversation of glances, near touches, unspoken truths. And each day, the gap between Erica and me grew wider. We barely spoke except in front of others. Our physical contact was limited to brief brushes in the hallway, or the obligatory arm around her shoulder when photos were being taken. She didn't seem to notice how far we drifted. Or maybe she didn't care. Either way, it felt like the house we'd built had hollowed itself out, and we were both just walking through the rooms pretending they were still full. That night, we stayed up later than usual. Melissa and Darren had gone to bed early after drinking too much sangria again. Erica had disappeared into the bedroom with her AirPods and a face mask. Katie and I ended up on the porch, just the two of us, the way we had every night since the storm. She sat on the edge of the railing, her legs swinging gently, wrapped in that same oversized blanket. I was on the swing, beer in hand, watching her through the soft light coming from the cabin window. "I'm going to miss this when it ends," she said. "This," I echoed. "This quiet," she clarified. "This time. This space we've made." I didn't respond right away. My fingers gripped the bottle tighter. She glanced at me. "Do you ever think about what happens when we go back down the mountain?" "Every minute," I said. Katie nodded slowly, looking away toward the trees. There was a long pause, broken only by the creaking swing and the faint chirp of crickets. Then she whispered, "Would it be wrong if I said I didn't want it to end?" My heart thudded once hard. I looked up at her, really looked. "No," I said. "It wouldn't be wrong." She stepped down from the railing, blanket slipping slightly off her shoulder. She took a few careful steps toward me and sat beside me on the swing. We didn't kiss. We didn't even touch. But she leaned into me, slowly, gently, until her head rested against my shoulder. The swing rocked softly beneath us, and my free hand found her knee under the blanket. Light, just resting there. Familiar. It was quiet. Too quiet. Which is why the sudden creak of the screen door slamming open hit us like a gunshot. Katie and I jolted apart as Erica stepped onto the porch. "Oh." She blinked, startled, eyes moving between us. "I thought everyone was asleep." "They are," I said quickly, heart pounding in my chest. She looked at Katie, then me. Her eyes narrowed slightly, lips parting as if she was about to say something. But then, Katie stood abruptly. "I was just coming in." Erica stepped aside as her sister passed her without looking back. The door creaked shut again. Erica turned toward me. "You're out here a lot lately," she said flatly. I forced a neutral expression. "It's peaceful. Clears my head." She folded her arms. With her, I met her gaze. She was already out here. I didn't know. She didn't respond. Her eyes searched my face for something, some sign of guilt or evasion. I gave her neither. After a long beat, she said, "You've been distant." I almost laughed. The irony was too thick. "So have you," I said. She looked off into the trees, jaw tight. "Is there something going on?" I stood. Not close, but not backing away either. "You tell me," I said, "because it feels like there hasn't been anything going on between us for a long time." She blinked. Once. Her posture stiffened. "Is this about that night?" she asked. "The joke. It's not about one night, Erica. It's about every night. Every time you look right through me. Every time you turn away when I try to reach for you." Her expression wavered, not softening, exactly, but shifting, as if she was seeing something she hadn't noticed until now. And maybe she was. "I didn't realize it was this bad," she said finally. "I did," I said, "and I've been pretending it wasn't." She didn't ask anything else. She didn't apologize. She just turned and went back inside, leaving me standing there, alone with the storm still echoing in my chest. Later, in the hallway, Katie passed me near the guest rooms. We didn't speak, but her fingers brushed mine as we moved past each other in the dark. A whisper of connection, a promise neither of us could voice. And for the first time, I realized the danger of what we were doing. Not because of guilt, not because of fear, but because if we weren't careful, someone was going to see what we couldn't hide anymore. It happened just before dinner. Tension had been building all day like pressure behind a dam. Every room felt too small, every conversation too loud. Erica had been short with me since the night before, passive-aggressive, eyes darting toward me every time Katie and I even entered the same room. I could see it in her posture. She didn't know, not really. But she felt something. That was enough. Katie, for her part, had grown quieter, more cautious. She avoided lingering in the same space for too long. When she passed me a plate at lunch, she didn't brush my fingers. When we crossed paths in the hallway, her eyes didn't meet mine. But that evening, after hours of eggshell walking and half-formed smiles, everything cracked open. It started with a joke. Melissa was talking about a married couple she knew who went to couples counseling and ended up splitting because one of them fell for the therapist. Everyone laughed. Lighthearted. Casual. And then Erica, swirling her wine, glanced at me and said, "Don't worry, babe. If you ever fall for someone, at least try to make sure it's not my sister." Silence. The air turned to glass. Everyone froze. Katie's fork clinked gently against her plate. I blinked. My jaw tightened. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Erica didn't smile. It's a joke. Relax. I pushed my chair back slowly. You think that's funny? She scoffed. Oh, come on. You've been attached at the hip all week. Don't act like I'm the only one who sees it. Melissa and Darren both shifted uncomfortably. Katie's face went pale. Don't do this, I said, voice low. Erica stood up, wine glass in hand. Why? Because I might be right? Because maybe you do want her instead of me? Katie stood abruptly. Stop. Erica. No. Erica snapped, rounding on her. You don't get to play innocent. You've been drooling over him since we were kids. I used to think it was cute. Now it's just pathetic. That did it. I stood, fists clenched at my sides. You don't talk to her like that. Her eyes snapped to me. Her? Not even denying it anymore, are you? Katie was already backing toward the hallway. I'm not doing this. I'm not. She disappeared, her footsteps retreating down the hall. The silence that followed was deafening. Melissa murmured something about giving us space. Darren stood and followed her out, casting me a look. Not angry, not judging. Just confused. And then it was just the two of us. Erica glared at me, wine forgotten in her hand. So, you gonna tell me the truth? I let out a slow breath. Do you even want it? I want to know if my husband is screwing my sister, she snapped. We haven't had sex, I said. But I kissed her. The words came out like a bullet. Sharp. Final. Erica staggered back a step, like I'd slapped her. You kissed her, she repeated. Yes. How long? Since the storm, I said. That night you went to bed early. She stared at me, disbelief flooding her face. Unbelievable. No, I said quietly. What's unbelievable is how long I've felt invisible in this marriage. How long you've looked through me like I was just furniture. She laughed, bitter and cracked. Oh, so this is my fault. You kissed my sister, and somehow I'm to blame? I'm not excusing it, I said. But I'm done pretending this marriage is alive when it's not. Erica looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And not in the way Katie did. Not with recognition or warmth. This was shock. Betrayal. Fury. And under all of it, something else. Resignation. You're really in love with her? She asked. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She nodded once, slow. Then get the hell out of my sight. I walked out the front door, into the cold night air. My chest burned, but not with guilt. With clarity. I walked down the dirt path past the edge of the clearing, into the woods where the trees swallowed the sounds of the world. And that's where she found me. Katie. Her face blotchy. Eyes red. She didn't speak. She just stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. I sank into her, into the only place that felt like home anymore. We stood there, tangled in each other, hearts pounding. It's out, I whispered. She knows. Katie pulled back enough to look at me. What now? I looked around at the trees, the stars barely visible through the shifting clouds. I think, I said slowly. I stopped pretending I'm still married. Katie nodded, tears shining in her eyes. And us. That's up to you, I said. She leaned in and kissed me again, deeper this time, urgent. A kiss that wasn't just about want. It was about choice. And I kissed her back, because for the first time in years, I wasn't reaching into a void. I was being met. No one spoke the next morning. The storm that had been brewing for days, the emotional one, had finally broken, and the silence it left behind was heavy. We all moved through the cabin like strangers pretending to still be friends. Coffee brewed, bags were packed, doors opened and shut, but no one said much. Erica was the first one ready to go. She moved with stiff precision, earbuds in, sunglasses on inside the house. The message was clear. She wasn't just done with me. She was done with the entire weekend. I watched her load her bag into the trunk without looking back. She didn't ask me to ride with her. She didn't ask me anything. I didn't stop her. Katie stood by the window in the cabin's main room, arms folded, a duffel bag at her feet. Her eyes followed Erica as she walked toward the car and disappeared into the driver's seat. "She's not coming back for you," Katie said quietly, not turning around. "I know," I said. There was no triumph in her voice. No smugness. If anything, it sounded like grief. "She'll tell your parents," she added. "Probably. She'll tell everyone." "I know," I repeated. Katie turned then. Her face was pale, but steady. "Are you ready for that?" I wasn't, I admitted. "But I am now." Katie took a slow breath. "This wasn't how I wanted it to happen." "Me either," I said. "But I'm glad it did." She stepped forward, close now, just a breath away. "You're sure?" she asked. "Because once we walk out that door together, there's no undoing this." I looked into her eyes, the same eyes that had watched me from across living rooms and dinner tables for years, quietly, patiently. Eyes that saw me in a way no one else had in a long, long time. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. And I meant it. Melissa and Darren didn't say much as we gathered our things. They weren't angry, just stunned, unsure where to place themselves in the wreckage. I didn't blame them. This trip was supposed to be a getaway, not a collapse. Darren pulled me aside before we left. "I didn't see it coming," he said. "Neither did I told him." He nodded once, then clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Just don't mess it up. She's a good one." I didn't need to ask who he meant. As Katie and I loaded our things into the back of my car, I could feel the shift, the weight of what we were choosing. The sharp edges of guilt still lingered, not because I regretted loving her, but because of what it cost. But the alternative, living in silence, in that hollow house with a hollow marriage, was no longer possible. I couldn't go back. Wouldn't. We climbed into the car. Katie sat beside me, quiet, hands folded in her lap. The gravel crunched beneath the tires as I backed out of the driveway. The cabin grew smaller in the rearview mirror, swallowed by the trees. As we drove down the winding mountain road, I kept glancing over at her. She wasn't smiling. Not yet. But she looked at peace. I reached for her hand, laced my fingers through hers. She squeezed back. We didn't talk much on the way down the mountain. There wasn't anything more to say, really. Everything had already been spoken, in glances, in late-night whispers, in the quiet way we had chosen each other when we didn't have to. We passed the overlook where we'd stood together a few days ago, where she'd told me she didn't want this to end. Now it wasn't ending. It was beginning. When we reached the edge of town, my phone buzzed with messages. I didn't check them. I already knew what they would say. I had betrayed my wife. I had broken the rules. I had crossed the line. And all of that was true. But what no one else knew, what no one could see, was the years of neglect, the slow erosion of a love that had once been real and then became obligation. They didn't see the nights I went to bed more alone than if I'd actually been alone. The jokes that chipped at my dignity. The eyes that stopped seeing me. They didn't know how long I had felt like a ghost in my own life. But Katie saw. From the beginning, she saw, and I wasn't going to waste that. We checked into a small inn just outside the city. Quiet. Discreet. Not because we were hiding, not anymore, but because we needed space. A place where the rest of the world couldn't reach us, at least for a little while. That night, in that unfamiliar room, we lay together on a bed that wasn't ours, under sheets that smelled like someone else's laundry detergent, and for the first time, it felt like we were home. She curled into my chest and whispered, "Are you okay?" "No," I said honestly. "But I will be." She nodded, eyes closed. "We're going to lose people," she said. "Maybe," I said, "but I'd rather lose everyone else than lose myself." And her fingers tightened around mine. In the days that followed, everything unfolded quickly. Erica filed for separation. My phone filled with messages, some angry, some confused, a few that surprised me with their support. Katie stayed close, never pushing, never rushing me. We were careful. We were quiet. But we weren't ashamed. Eventually, we told our parents. Then her friends. Then mine. Some people accepted it. Some didn't. But we didn't flinch. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about betrayal. It was a story about rediscovery. About recognizing a dying thing and having the courage to stop pretending it was still alive. It was a story about seeing and being seen. And choosing each other. no matter the cost.